Even though Sukuna has been receiving praise for his performance in his individual fights recently, one thing I don't see people talk about too much is how Sukuna has fought so many major sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen with no break whatsoever, and is still fighting with a huge smile on his face like he isn't phased. After dealing with the tough fight against Gojo, then the fight with Kashimo, and all of the fights that happened after that, where he did take a lot of damage, this seems to be the most fun Sukuna has had the entire series. And even after seeing the combination of Yuta inside of Gojo's body, which is basically indicating that after all of the damage that Sukuna has taken so far, including all of the black flashes by Yuji, he will still have to fight the strongest again. Sukuna doesn't care. Even if his life is at risk, just the chance to fight against the strongest again, no matter what condition Sukuna himself is in, is all he wants. No doubt, I believe that Sukuna is on a generational run that will be talked about in Shonen history. And by the way, only about 11% of you guys that watch are subscribed, so if you do enjoy the videos but you haven't subbed yet, then please try it out. And for this video, I have a good friend with me, Jaded Satoru. Say hello.
Hey guys, it's Jaded.
Jaded also makes Jujutsu Kaisen videos, so if you enjoy JJK, you should really check his channel out. He's gonna help me break down this run that Sukuna has been on, and one thing that, although this isn't slept on within the verse of Jujutsu Kaisen, one thing I see social media sleep on about this run Sukuna has been on is how insane his curse energy control is. Because we learned that he had 2 times the amount of curse energy as Yuta, but his curse energy control is what has led him to fight this far. Jaded, you remember when Yuta in the fight with Yuta, oh my god, you remember when Yuta in the fight with Ryu and Uro was running out of curse energy, like literally towards the beginning of the fight?
Yeah, just from using reverse curse technique, he's already starting to bottom out, but Sukuna's been using how much reverse curse technique, and he's still going?
He's been using reverse curse technique on his physical body and his soul with only, it's funny saying only, but only 2 times the amount of curse energy as Yuta. And Yuta was beginning to bottom out literally within 1 chapter of starting the fight against Ryu and Uro. But Sukuna has been through this entire fight with Gojo, Kashimo, and everybody else, and still is only at half of his curse energy, meaning that there's really no way for Sukuna to lose by running out of curse energy. You basically have to kill the guy. And it's also showing how insane his curse energy control is, showing that even though Yuta was able to run out of curse energy in 1 chapter, Sukuna's been able to fight for literally over 40 chapters and still has half of his curse energy left.
What you have to remember about Sukuna is he's definitely one of the top tier people when it comes to being efficient with their cursed energy. Kashimo mentioned before when Sukuna was swapping between using domain amplification and his curse technique that the only thing that really separates Sukuna and Gojo when it comes to efficiency is Gojo having the 6 eyes. And if it wasn't for the 6 eyes, Sukuna would be winning when it comes to efficiency. Now, the 6 eyes are the tool that literally allows Gojo to use basically no cursed energy whenever he's using any type of curse technique. Having efficiency like that is game changing, and we're watching it play out right now. That's the difference between Sukuna and really everyone else around, who's also on their last legs, but Sukuna's been fighting everybody and putting them on their last legs.
And another crazy thing is that we know in chapter 250, Sukuna was stated to have Yuta amount of curse energy, which is just half of his curse energy amount. And he has been through Yuta's domain expansion, he got stabbed by Maki and in his soul, he received 8 black flashes from Yuji that also landed on Sukuna's soul. And this entire time from chapter 250 to 260, Sukuna has been using reverse curse technique on his soul and body, and we still got a statement in chapter 260 that he still has the same amount of curse energy that he has now as he did 10 chapters ago. Now, part of the reason he has the same amount of curse energy now is because he was able to land a black flash against Maki and a couple of black flashes against Choso Laru. But it just goes to show that even after everything that Sukuna has been through in the past 10 chapters, he's still at the same curse energy amount. And in chapter 260, it says that even though his curse energy levels have dropped to the level of Yuta's, as long as he recovered his burnt out technique, then he would be able to use his domain expansion as many times as needed. So even after dealing with all of this damage from everybody, even, Yuji about to try to rip out his heart, he is now able to use his domain expansion as many times as he needs to. And I know that that's one of the things that people were worried about Sukuna going into this fight with Yuta Gojo, is that maybe they don't know if his domain expansion will be full power or not. It says that he was able to use his domain as many times as needed, but then again, that isn't saying that his domain will be full power. I think it is up to Gege to decide whether or not Sukuna being at this level of curse energy will affect the domain clash that he is about to have with Yuta. We also don't know how efficient Yuta will be inside of Gojo's body, so it's not just a surefire victory for Yuta, even though Sukuna is pretty weakened, because we don't know how good Yuta will be inside Gojo's body. We don't know how refined the domain will be. And some people speculate that he is like using a mixture of supposedly Kenjaku's domain and Unlimited Void, but I don't even believe that theory at all. So it really is just up to Gege to decide how this domain clash will go. But the main thing is, even though he was dealt all of this damage by Yuji, to the point where Yuji was literally about to try to rip his heart out, the moment he sees Yuta inside Gojo's body, he just cracks a big smile, just ready to have a fight with the strongest again. So it's just showing that no matter what Sukuna goes through, he's always just this monster that you can't get rid of.
It's no secret that throughout Shonen, there's this trope of the villain just run through every powerful person in the series until they're just seemingly untouchable. We see like how in Dragon Ball Z, Frieza just runs through Vegeta, Piccolo, and then Goku before he gets into Super Saiyan. We see in Boruto, for example, when Jigen shows up, he beats down Naruto and Sasuke. And even before Boruto and Naruto, Madara ran through the entire Shinobi Alliance and the 5 Kage. What we're watching is Sukuna conforming to this trope, but in the way that makes Sukuna's a little bit more special, at least to me. What makes Sukuna's different in my mind is that at different points during this gauntlet, Sukuna really proves one thing, and it's that he's the best, and he's the king of curses, and he's the strongest in history. When he goes up against Gojo, for example, a big part about what made Gojo special was his jujutsu. What does Sukuna do? He evolves his jujutsu and beats Gojo. Iguruma, for example, he fights using the law. Sukuna takes the worst punishment that you can get in the courtroom, the death penalty, and still walks away basically scot-free. Yuta, for example, he uses the powers of others with his copy technique to fight against his opponents, and what does Sukuna do? He proceeds to win a 3v1. Maki, she's the physical merchant of the series, she's the strongest physically, and what does Sukuna proceed to do? He ends up beating her with a Black Flash, which is his strongest physical attack. At every one of these turns in the series, Sukuna's been beating all of these guys at their own game.
Another thing that we see is different about Sukuna's run compared to the traditional way it's done in Shonen is that this entire run started with the fight against the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer, and it's about to seemingly end against the strongest, but in a different way, since we're seeing that Yuta, who was supposed to be the second strongest sorcerer in history, is now inside the strongest body. This is something that I've never seen done in any shonen. Yes, we've seen people like Madara and Kaguya have to fight against Naruto and Sasuke when they were really powerful, but we've never seen somebody who had to fight against the strongest of the time. They successfully won the fight, then they have to do a rematch, but it's somebody else in their body. This is something completely unique to Jujutsu Kaisen that I think just adds even more depth to the story and makes Sukuna's run even that more generational. One other thing that we see about Sukuna's run that is actually really unique to Jujutsu Kaisen is that there's this whole trope that you have to become this monster in order to become super powerful. We see that Sukuna tells this to Jogo, and we see that Uro tells this to Yuta after the fight, that in order to reach these unattainable heights, you have to become a monster, you have to abandon your humanity. And we know that, for example, Hikari was somebody who abandoned his humanity, but Yuta was somebody who hadn't quite done it yet, which is why Ryu and Uro said that they thought that Yuta was reaching his ceiling. But now Yuta is doing what Sukuna has been saying all along. Yuta is abandoning his humanity, and because of this, we will possibly see a power-up like none other. So we've seen in other shonen where, yes, the main villain has forced these main characters to become stronger, but something that is unique to Jujutsu Kaisen is the fact that not only do the main cast have to become stronger, they have to abandon their humanity in order to reach the top.
So like what Mir said, as this fight goes on, Sukuna's forcing basically Yuji's allies to become more monstrous and become more like him. Now, what's special about this is that in other shonen, we see other characters fight against their antagonist, and it's really a battle of philosophies that parallels well with their dynamic between each other. Naruto vs. Pain, for example. Pain believes that you need to suffer to reach your goal, but Naruto doesn't really agree with all that too much. And by the end of the fight, we see that Naruto's way and Naruto's philosophy actually prevails at the end. On the other hand, for Sukuna, his philosophy and his way of living and his way of fighting seems to be consistent with how you want to be if you want to be strong in the world of JJK. It's almost like as time goes on, Sukuna's just been more and more correct in the way he thinks.
Yeah, that's another thing that we see in every other shonen, basically ever. It's always the power of friendship, people uniting, and literally being the embodiment of humanity in order to band up against the villain and win. But Sukuna is doing the exact opposite. You have to abandon this humanity that is really shown in every other shonen, you have to abandon this humanity in order to defeat Sukuna. So I think it's this cool play on Sukuna, like Jaded said, being right this entire time. He told us back in chapter 116 that you have to become a monster in order to be strong. And yes, it was sort of ignored, but we see that as time and time goes on, Sukuna was right this entire time. Another thing that makes Sukuna's run so special is that his clutch stat is like a 99 overall. He is one of the most clutch Jujutsu sorcerers, arguably the most clutch Jujutsu sorcerer in Jujutsu history. We see when he was trapped in Yuta's domain expansion, right after he got hit by Jacob's ladder, he just lands a world slash on Yuta, cutting him completely in half.
Ever since beating Gojo, it's been clutch moment after clutch moment. Even beating Gojo in the first place, Sukuna pulled it off by making a binding vow to reduce the conditions to launch his world-cutting slash, and that's the reason why he was able to cut Gojo with his Infinity Up. Then even just landing black flashes is pretty clutch within itself, especially when you consider that Sukuna's cursed energy volume had been dropping to where he'd been about Yuta level, and the black flashes put you in the zone, which obviously is going to give him crazy efficiency, which means he's going to lose even less cursed energy. Then on top of that, he swapped the hand sign that he opens up Malevolent Shrine with, so that way he could avoid using the part of his brain that was damaged by Infinite Void. It's like time and time again, we've just been seeing clutch moment after clutch moment.
So basically everything that we've said so far, how clutch Sukuna is, his amazing curse energy control, and how he conforms to this villain trope where even though he is conforming to the trope of the big bad guy at the end of the series, he's doing it in a completely different way where he changes the mindset of everybody around him. Instead of having the main characters force their ideals onto him, he is forcing his ideals onto the main cast and they are actually conforming to his ideals. He is also beating every sorcerer he fights at their own game, which makes his run even that more special. So for all of the reasons that we've talked about so far, I truly do believe that this run that Sukuna has been on will be talked about for years to come in shonen history, and depending on the outcome of this fight against Yuta inside of Gojo's body, his run could become even more legendary. But the only way for us to find out what will happen with that fight is just to wait and see. And that will be all for okay. And that will be all for today's video. I want to thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed JJK content, then I really would appreciate if you would subscribe. Also check out Jaded's channel since he uploads Jujutsu Kaisen videos, and that's pretty much it. JD, got anything you want to say?
No, it's been a fun video. See you guys.
All right, see you guys later.